Welcome to the Above Center Leadership Podcast. I'm Marcy.
And I'm Allison, and this is our chance to learn from leaders who know how to get results while staying above center.
Let's get started.
Hello and welcome back. We are so excited to be with another Above Center interview. And today we are so lucky because we do have the one and only JB Kropp with us. JB, could you give us a little bit about your leadership and who you are, what you've been doing?
Yeah, a little background. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I run a venture fund in Cincinnati. We focus on early stage startups. And early stage startups are those that have pre-revenue or a little bit of revenue. And so, your podcast is very timely because a lot of the times we help coach them on leadership styles and how they want to build a team. So that's my day job, and I've got a bunch of side hustles that I work on as well. But leadership for me has been sort of an evolution over my career. I've adopted other people's leadership styles who I've worked for. I've also kind of created my own leadership style. But I've always been sort of a hands-off leader, empowering my team to do the work they're doing, bring me in when they need it, barriers removed. But I believe that everyone has their own superpower, and it's if you can unlock everyone's superpower on your team, then you'll have an incredible, well-oiled machine.
I love it. And I'd love to continue with that, uncovering somebody else's superpower. So when you're working with founders, they have this passion around an idea. And I'm sure if they're with you, you've already vetted that this is a great idea, but it takes leadership to make the idea work. So how do you help founders kind of get clear on what their superpower is and then kind of use that to lean into their growth strategy?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not identifying the superpower, it's identifying their gaps and their weaknesses. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I always say it's lonely at the top because you're by yourself, and if you have people that work for you, they expect you to have all the answers. Let's say you've raised a bunch of money from investors. The investors think you have all the answers. And so, we're big advocates of mentorship and coaching for our early stage founders because they need a sounding board. They need someone to talk to. But really good entrepreneurs know their superpower. They know how to use it. And the ones the unicorn founders, they know how to build a team around them to fill their gaps. And so we're here to really help them build the team around them, make sure they're focused on the right part of the business. Because many times leaders can get bogged down with the stuff they don't like doing. And when that's the case, it manifests itself out into like poor leadership or passive aggressive behavior or hiring too fast and not getting the right team in place. So, we're big believers of, if you are building a company, and you're going to raise a little money, then who you need on the team, how you're going to coach them, what processes need to be in place, to help. A lot of times early stage companies, they don't have an HR department, right? So they've got to figure out how to deal with HR issues or promotions or, pay grade scales. There's just a lot of stuff building a company that a lot of leaders don't want to deal with because they're innovators, they're the entrepreneurs, they want to go build. And so it's coaching them to surround them with the right people to make sure that their leadership style can excel is important.
Yeah, and that ties very nicely into the idea of above center. A lot of those behaviors you talked about when they're not having their best day or they're having to do all the work that doesn't inspire them and their creativity drops and their momentum drops because of all that. And that's when we call below center, when people are not having their best day, they're not becoming their best selves. But I love that you're able to help them try to get back above center so that they can find support, the scaffolding they need in order to thrive. When their company thrives, everybody's happy, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot. I mean, over my career, we've always talked about culture. Culture at one company. How does this company have such a great culture and this company doesn't? Like, what's the difference, right? And really, like some companies try to be very prescriptive on culture. Like, hey, we're going to go for a happy hour. We're all going to force you to hang out and have fun, right? That's our culture. We're going to force feed you. We're going to pay for you to have fun. But when you really look at the thriving companies, the culture really starts at the top. It really starts at the leadership level. And you have to, and culture takes a long time to build. And so so for me, we have a small team, but I'm a big believer in culture. And so I spend a lot of time, making sure the employees have what they need. We do a lot of offsites. We do a lot of fun things. We have got great holiday parties. We're, doing things around the office to make the culture feel better. We have a culture club crew that just kind of helps, put all that together. But really it's my leadership style of of a little bit more empowering others to do their work and find their superpower really helps build a strong culture. We have no micromanagers on the team. We try to empower everybody to do their job, and everyone does a great job, and we try to highlight everyone's work, and so it's a very collaborative environment, and I think it takes time to get there. It's not like you don't show up on a Monday staff meeting and say this is the way culture is going to be and this way we're going to do it. You have to do by doing, by showing, by leading by example is just really important.
So JB, walk me through a new hire. So you've hired somebody new on your team and you're introducing them to the culture. You're wanting them to, embrace it and step in. How do you start to introduce that and encourage them to also be their own unique selves?
Yeah, so we're literally onboarding someone in about a month for a new role, and during the interview process, I'm very clear of this is my expectation, this is the culture I like, these are the things that I like, just naturally gravitate towards. I'm a big believer in just making sure that people aren't holding things back. They're not protective. They're not passive aggressive. So I said, we're very open. I said, we want you to come here and do your job. We're hiring you to do something very specific. And so I said, when you come in here, I want you to literally sit here for the first month and just work, just sit with everybody, learn what they do. You don't need to come in and prove that you're adding value. You don't need to come in and prove that why you deserve this role. This is the long game. So come and listen and learn. And if there's incremental things you can add value, but in a month you'll find your way and you'll have your projects and you'll understand the culture will be built through engaging and communicating with the other employees, her other teammates. And so it's just going to be, it's just, again, it's not, you don't come in and say, oh, this is the culture, therefore I'm going to mold into it. You have to kind of build into the culture in which you're joining. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of nuance to culture, and there's a lot of nuance to leadership. My predecessor at the organization had a much very different culture than what we have now, and it really started at the leadership level. There was some some behavior that might not have been the best for the business, but because it kind of started at the top, and so people were reacting to that and responding to that, and so. I think as a leader of an organization, you have to be very cognizant of what you're doing, what you say, how you conduct your meetings, who you spend time with. It all kind of adds to your leadership style, how your employees will react, as well as how the culture plays out.
What's interesting in this day and age of employees' expectations of culture, it's no longer like something that's set on the wall and then it's done differently. Like what I love about this next generation of employees that are coming to, what you say you're going to do is what they expect, and if not, they're going to leave. And that's something that a lot of companies are trying to navigate. Like, how do we make sure we're consistent in the employee experience as we say we want to be? So if you have somebody on your team that they don't even realize, one of their blind spots is they're not behaving in the way that you expect the culture to be. So if you expect the culture to be empowering, they might be a little too directive to people and treating people in a way that's too little, maybe more micromanagement than the culture deserves. How do you kind of balance that style of personality empowering them, but really being blunt that they have some things that are going against the grain of the culture and causing some stress on the employees?
Yeah, it's with this day and age and this employee base, it's very tricky. We work with a outsourced HR, leader to help us sort of navigate these conversations. But we have every Monday we have a all hands meeting, and my hope is that when someone is not bought into the culture or is struggling with the culture or just struggling, like they can see the examples of their peers and how they're behaving and what they're acting like and what they share as the model, right? I mean, I think people learn by like real examples, right? Not vagueness, like very directed, like, hey, this is what you said in the email. This is why this is sort of against sort of what we're trying to do here. I think without having hard examples, it's really hard to be gray in this day and in this. I mean, when I was coming up in my career, you know, I was, like the Gen Xers, I felt like we were all worried about losing our jobs, right?
Right.
We were, it's very different this day and age. They're not worried about losing their job. They're just not offended. They're just, they're just kind of. We should be thankful that they're showing up, right? So it's a delicate balance of how do you guide them to the culture that you're looking for? And hopefully you suss all this out there in an interview process, but sometimes you don't, right? Sometimes, or someone's been here for a long time and you're a new leader and you've got to sort of how do you mold someone to the new leadership style? It just takes time. And frankly, some people will be on board with it and some people won't. And they'll realize this isn't for me and I'm just going to move on, which is completely fine. We don't, we're not hiring people. These are, they're here to do a job. We're not here to like just make them happy all the time, right? There's a job to be done. So
Yeah, well, you know what? That's all so true. The workforce that is there today, they're used to this authenticity that has bubbled up to the surface. And can you think back to a time where, a story from your own career that changed the way you lead or work with others?
um, that's a really good question. I'm just kind of reflecting back on some, I haven't had a lot of corporate jobs. I've been always in like entrepreneurial roles, and I think in entrepreneurial roles, you're kind of paving your own course. But I would say when I was at Scripps, I led their M&A and sort of digital strategy. And Scripps is a public company in Cincinnati, big longtime media company. Um, and I had a team there, and I think you know, Scripps did a pretty good job with like feedbacks, like feedback sessions and stuff. And I think it was very helpful and empowering for employees to sort of share their feedback and like in sort of in an anonymous and an anonymous way. But I think the feedback I got in general was okay. These are the things that matter to these employees that have been at Scripps for 10 years. So not everybody is entrepreneurial in thinking about like, doing something new and different. Like some people just they're happy with, I love my job, I love the culture, I love the company, you know, let's move forward. So I mean, I think a lot of feedback from just employees over the years. I will tell you, Scripps is an interesting company, and that's where I learned a lot of, I think, about culture. Scripps is a public company, but it's still predominantly owned by the family. So it had a very family dynamic. Um, and so it had a very family cultural feel, which was great. So that's why you got people there for 10, 15, 20 years because nobody wanted to leave because they felt like they're leaving the family. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic. So as I think about me leading in the future, there is a notion of creating a family dynamic where, hey, we're working, but we're close. We spend a lot of time together. Like, let's treat each other with respect. Let's treat each other like we're family, right? So, like, there was a lot of that at Scripps that Adam Simpson, the CEO, did a phenomenal job on. I've taken some of his leadership styles and kind of brought it over to sort of my career, just it's because it worked so well for me. It resonated with me, and I think it resonated with the team around me.
Yeah, I think stuff like that is so important because, you have to kind of know who you're working with. And so when it's that family feel, there's just so many different dynamics. And what I love about the entrepreneurial journey is you really can, you have the blank canvas to create it how you want it. And it really comes to like, what do you really like out of a company? And so even your own background, kind of only being the entrepreneurial space, it's nice that you can kind of make sure that you're kind of always cultivating that. I think that's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, and I think the having these conversations allowed me to reflect. Like when I think about all my past jobs, the people at Scripps are the ones I still talk to all the time. I became the closest with them. It's because I think of the culture and the leadership style that they had over there really just allowed you to be vulnerable, allowed you to be family members, and it just I still in touch with them weekly. And if I think about all of their jobs, I really am not in touch with a lot of the other people that I work with, just for whatever reason. I just
Mhm.
have a really strong bond with what we've built at Scripps and the family culture that they had there.
Yeah, we always say like there's so much beauty in the growth mindset. So when you're growing earlier in your career, like say your first 15 years, first 10 years, whatever the number is, there's so many milestones you're doing. And every milestone, if you're with trusted people that are giving you tough feedback and pushing you and be like, no, there's another level you can be, there's another level. There's just such like respect and authenticity with those relationships. I feel the same with a lot of my friends from when I first started
Mhm.
out of.
And when you think about what you guys are building, I think about opportunity is there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Mhm.
And I've always been a big believer that if you are going to so Cintrifuse is an organization that supports startups and supports entrepreneurship in Cincinnati. And so, I've always been a big believer if you are going to help a startup and help a founder, you should also try to be a founder yourself. So I'm a believer in side hustles. Like I just go learn how to do it, get your hands dirty. You'll step in every pothole along the way, but that's good because you're learning from that. And I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunities these days that I think it's good for people to to explore those because I think it only helps them grow professionally and personally. So I've always been, anytime I interview somebody, I always ask, "What's your side hustle?" And they're
Mhm.
always thrown back by that because they're like thinking,
Am I allowed to have one?
"Am I allowed to have right? Am I allowed to have?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "No. What's your side? Your side hustle could be, a dog grooming business on the side. Like it does, like just I met a guy that had a florist. Used to have a CTO one of our startups had a florist on the side. It's like that's amazing. Like, and by the way, he's learning. He has all these other challenges and leadership issues that he's got at a florist level as he does as a CTO at a startup. So he's learning and developing personally and professionally on that angle. So
Yeah,
um,
that's so true. So any favorite side hustles of yours?
Well, I mean, I have a pet supplement business that I love because my dad was a veterinarian, so we sell pet supplements, hip and joint and salmon oil and stuff like that that I've enjoyed, and recently launched an iced tea business because I'm not a coffee drinker, so I decided to launch some iced tea. And I just if my team was sitting around me, they would be rolling their eyes right now because I've got so many little side hustles that it's hard to keep up with. But that's what keeps me energized, right? I'm not a golfer. I'm just like the stuff I like to do is tinker with new business ideas and try to solve some problems and so it's fun. Keeps me
Oh,
energized.
I love it. So one question we want to ask you is I know you mentioned there's a quote that you love from Steve Jobs about the most powerful person is the most powerful person in the world is the one that's a storyteller. Can you tell us a little bit more about, why that quote stands out and how storytelling like just helps to inspire alignment and connection in your organization?
Yeah, I think everything in life has an amazing story if it's told correctly. And I think that um I find the best leaders, entrepreneurs are phenomenal storytellers because they can really articulate sort of their vision, their plan, how they're going to change the world, why this is impactful. And I've just felt, storytelling is one of those elements of building a business and being a leader that's it it humanizes you a little bit, right? If you can tell a really authentic, story, if it's personal or professional, it allows you to connect with the person you're talking to. And if it's an organization telling the story, it allows the organization to connect with the community. I mean, we spend a lot of time helping our founders and our company Centrifuse just tell the right story in our region. Like, because if you can't tell a really good story, then people aren't going to understand what you do. They're not going to like, rally behind you. They're not going to support you. So if you are a really good storyteller, I really think it starts there, because that's where you're going to get your advocates. That's where you're going to get your supporters. That's where people are going to be like your biggest cheerleader.
And JB, your company is primarily Cincinnati focused. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that storytelling is really helping the entire community when you're telling the Cincinnati story. You're not just telling the company story.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's
I
really
mean, Yeah, I mean, when you think about entrepreneurship, I mean, you guys are entrepreneurs, right? And so when I talk about entrepreneurships and startups to the broader ecosystem, everyone's looking for point me to an example so I can understand this. Like I understand what a law firm is, but tell me what a startup is. And you start to explain the journey that the startup founder goes down. They're raising some money and they're, this is the journey they're going down. But as an ecosystem builder of entrepreneurship in Cincinnati, we spend a lot of time just crafting the story, crafting our biggest challenges, crafting, um, how are we going to take it to the next level? What's important to us? Because we have to tell this story in a way that my parents can understand, right? Like that sometimes people can get caught up in their own little echo chamber, little bubble. But like we try to do storytelling broadly of entrepreneurship, it matters to Procter and Gamble and to Kroger because XYZ. It matters to the local coffee shops in the suburbs because of XYZ. Like, coffee shops in the suburbs are supporting entrepreneurship because you have a granola company in there, you have an iced tea brand in there, you have other entrepreneurs that are using them to help with distribution. So a lot of the storytelling like cuts across not only like how you can be a startup founder and what that means to the community, but also like in general, like how does this build the ecosystem, the greater Cincinnati area as well.
Yeah, because like connecting anybody, any audience with the story is so important. And it's funny because I feel like humans are meant to tell stories. Like that's how life began. They pass stories through generations. But now with technology, people kind of shortcut their stories. So when they're actually verbal about it, they give the long story, which that really doesn't help either. So it's not about just making sure you're talking, but really getting prepared and succinct about telling a story that's captivating for the specific audience. And when you're working with any of your brands, do you have like certain techniques that help them get prepared or coach them up on how to be better storytellers?
We're trying to do better. We're trying to, I mean, we have a marketing team that help them build their story, their
Mhm.
presentation. But when you talk to a lot of our entrepreneurs, the ones that are going to be successful is they're solving a personal problem. And if they're solving a personal problem, they have an amazing story to tell before they even started the company. The reason why I started this company was my daughter was XYZ, and I realized this was a problem, and therefore I'm launching, et cetera. That's the best story to tell because when you're solving a personal problem, I find that those entrepreneurs have a real mission, a real passion to solving it, as opposed to, oh, I found a problem. It's not my problem, but I'm going to see if I can solve it. It's a different level of, I don't know, engagement. Uh,
Yeah, that's so true.
Let me ask you guys a question. Like, so you guys have been, you launched a while ago, and you've got you very successful and got a great brand. Like, as you think about as you build your team and your leadership style, because you have coaches all over the place. Like, how do you approaching sort of leadership from a remote perspective, right? Like, you're all very behind Zoom or maybe not a lot of in person, but like,
Mhm.
how are you guys guiding that?
Well, I think the one thing that you mentioned in the very beginning is the culture. So for us, the word rebel means to have fun and enjoy your moments and things like that. So we always try to make sure that's a little bit on the forefront of a lot of our calls. And then just in general, I think so much of our strategy is to like find people that kind of share in the mission because we're not together all the time, but they have to have their own style of how they solve problems for their clients, in their unique way or their unique niche. So for us, it's all about making sure the right people are on the team and then just trust. And then we try to have a lot more fun than stress. Is kind of a lot of our strategy. And, we all have different, strengths. So mine's like a little bit more the corporate background. Allison is more the chief story officer. She's like the author and professor. So we all have like different strengths. So just tapping into each other has been really beneficial.
That's great. So you all know your superpower.
Yeah. And then we remind each other when we're in the place of doubt and shame because we're entrepreneurs, remind each other of what it was. But you're actually good at this.
And there is
So,
always that moment where you have to pause and reflect, and it's that reflection that helps us move forward. One of the things that Marcy and I have mentioned this before, but what we started with, our little one sheeter, when we were just with this idea, sort
the
of a
coffee
cocktail
mug.
napkin, coffee mug. Marcy's first idea was, I want to do something with a coffee mug. And so here
And
we
you
are
wanted to
now.
you wanted to write a book and then it turned into a blog. I'm like, well, can we just get a quote for a coffee mug? 8 years later.
And so, but almost all the ideas that we had in the very beginning have stayed. We've just refined them. Even though we might have ignored something for a little bit, it came back around because those were our passions. And so when you stay true to who you are and your own passion, and you can see that vision for the future, and we start walking in that path of who we want to be, when we start aligning that action, we are able to really get there. We just have to figure it out. We get in there, we learn how to grow. We interview people where we can, learn from. So we always call these podcasts our little graduate degree. So we're creating our own business administration degree.
Well,
And
congrats on all the success. I still will never forget the time when you guys stood up in front of all of the alumni and said, "This is what we're doing."
Surprise. It
and
was
here
our
we are.
deadline. Well, for the audience, the three of us went to Denison University together, all at different times, but we reconnected during an entrepreneurial summit that they had there. But for Allison and me, we were going into business together, and we had that why not moment. We were just registering for the LLC, and all of a sudden, ding! Both of us received an email from our university announcing this entrepreneurial remix. That was probably 6 months later. We're like, okay, we got to have something by then. So that was our main deadline to have something by then, 6, 7 years ago.
That's great. Congrats.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Well, we'd love to just ask, one more last question around leadership and just kind of staying on the thought of anybody who has this big idea. They get the butterflies in their stomach because they think they want to do it, but they have the butterflies because they have too much fear. And like, how do I actually go forward? What advice do you have for them about jumping into the entrepreneurial mix and make their side hustle their full-time
Yeah.
opportunity?
What I tell people to do, and I do myself, is if you have an idea, if you can articulate it on a one piece of paper, right? What it is, what you're trying to go after, who the audience is, why this is an unmet need, what problem you're trying to solve. Like write it down. If you can write it down, it helps you like really articulate the idea. And then you just have to socialize it casually with friends and just get their reaction. And you want to socialize it with people that aren't your really good friends. They're just not going to say, "Oh, it's a great idea," even though it's like it might not be. Like find people that are going to be like your smart dummies. Like they're really smart people, and they're also going to be like, "Hey, this is a dumb idea," because you need someone to really tell you that this has been done 100 times. If you, assuming you've Googled the idea first, but you really need someone to set you on the right path first, because there's many entrepreneurs that get so in love and emotional about their idea and their project, and they have all their family and friends saying, "Oh, that is such a great idea." No one's got the guts to tell them, "I'll never buy that," or "I'll never do that," or "That's not needed in the world." So, when that happens, those entrepreneurs get stuck because they listen to all the false positives, and they just continue going down this path, and they get so far in that they're so in love with it they don't know how to like back out. And so, I really encourage people to do the research, be open with friends and family and other business people, and just say, "I got an idea to run by you. Let me know what you think." And then, by the way, as you talk to more and more people, your idea will become refined. And next thing you know, you're like, "Oh, actually, my idea was this, but it's actually a little bit better if I just add this, or I go after this demographic or this industry vertical." Like people will help you refine it. You just have to ask.
Mhm.
And frankly,
That's
this
such
day
good
in
advice.
yeah, this day in AI too. I mean, you can get so much further along than what the three of us did 8 years ago. Just
Mhm.
prompting the chat GBT with questions and challenging it. And I mean, it's amazing how efficient things can be this day. But again, back to the old school, write it down on a piece of paper. If you can articulate it on a piece of paper, problem, solution, why this is a big idea, that will really help you think what you're really working on, if it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, JB, as always, so great to see you. We appreciate you joining us today for this podcast interview.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great seeing you guys.
Great seeing you. We'll see you in a couple months.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
So how fortunate are we that we went to Denison and they do those entrepreneurial remixes? I feel like we've met so many great people.
We have, and not just met great people, but we learned great strategies.
I always remember like the first time I met JB being so impressed by all the brands he had and how do you do it? And we're like, basically had this expert giving us free advice on how to get started in a business. And I think that's kind of like the secret of getting started in something. It's like surround yourself with people that have knowledge and they're willing to share. So fun.
Asking questions. It's all, to me, the biggest predictor of success is when you start asking questions and you ask everybody. When you can ask, when you're not afraid to ask the questions, you're going to get good answers.
Yeah. All right. So shameless plug for our mom. Remember, she used to give the quote, "She who asks the most questions wins."
Who misses question?
Miss questions, 20 questions. All right. Great to see you. Thank you.
As always, it's better together.
Better together.
Learn more at therevelcompanies.com.
That was fun.